Hey, welcome to the 476th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patrons Sarah Demistreet, Jennifer Liao, and Ryan Valdez. I'm Matt Edmo.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and today we have cinematographer Andy Rydzewski back on the show. He was last on episode 109, 106, something like that.
106.
Basically like 350 episodes ago. And we're excited to have him back. When he was here the first time, he had just finished shooting Pen 15, the show for Hulu, and now he just filmed a new movie called Friendship that is in theaters as we speak. It stars Tim Robinson, Kate Mara, Paul Rudd. It is a smash hit in Silver Lake, California. I think it's spreading to Los Feliz and Eagle Rock and might make it to Hollywood and who knows, maybe even Santa Monica.
Maybe even North Hollywood, who knows?
Maybe even North Hollywood. No, but we joke because LA is going cuckoo for this movie as the release is slowly rolling out to the rest of the country. But if you don't know Tim Robinson, he has a show called I Think You Should Leave that is very funny and crazy. And the director of this movie, Andrew DeYoung, did you know that he directed for The Midnight Show, the same sketch comedy?
Oh, I didn't realize that, actually.
That I directed for, that Payman Benz directed for, previous guest, Peter Tencio. It's like, if you look at the list of everyone that's directed for that show, that one of the guys that, Tyler Gillette, that did Ready or Not, I think he was on our podcast too. You look at the list of people that were directed for The Midnight Show, it's like 9 superstar directors and me.
Yeah. So, yeah. You are the least successful of that roster.
Yeah. It's such a bummer. And I still remember the rage I felt when they asked me to direct the second time. And I was like, no, guys, I'm not wasting my time on. And then literally everyone else is just so successful.
Yeah. Well, speaking of successful, Friendship, it's not only is it a buzzy movie right now, but it's pretty great. We had a chance to walk through it. And Andy, like I said, he's the cinematographer on the movie. And we really dig deep on the kind of unorthodox approach they have to shooting this film and kind of photographing comedy in a way that feels fresh and unique and thematically rich in a way that, is exciting. It's really cool.
Yeah, we really nerd out on this one. We talk about f-stops, lens choices, camera movement, lighting, aspect ratios, all the things that a cinematographer might be in charge of or might definitely be very involved in the conversation with the director about. And I like this. I feel like sometimes we for many years, we kind of avoided going into the camera settings discussions because we felt like we're not the ISO versus shutter speed type of podcast. We felt like that was other podcasts. But sometimes it's nice to figure out what the technical side of the art, and Andy's a great person to talk to about it.
We're always worried about being in that zone of how to make your next shot the most cinematic, right? Kind of like that tutorial sort of energy.
Just tell Midjourney to make it cinematic.
Yeah, but I think we do actually get very specific on what Andy's recipe was for this movie, as he calls it. But I think we approach it from a positioning of craft and storytelling and kind of how to achieve your vision on a technical level. I'm curious, I think also, Oren, you kind of had hinted out, I think you and I are maybe a little bit more hands-on when it comes to certain decisions that I don't know that I would make the decision about an ISO. I wouldn't, but I would absolutely want to have real conversations about not just the theoretical behind it, but the actual execution of how we're going to put together this vision. I don't like it when DPs are trust me, you'll like it. I'm like, no, I want you to tell me exactly what you're doing before I say yes or no. I feel like you and I are both a little bit more technical than lots of directors. Do you find that or am I inventing that?
I guess because I work with a lot of new DPs, I kind of like to know a little bit of their theories on camera, how to set up the camera correctly. But if I work with a DP I've worked with multiple times, I probably wouldn't really be that specific. But usually I'm just kind of looking at the monitor and I'll just be like, oh, this looks dark or this looks green or this looks noisy.
Yeah, it's not that I'm trying to be meddlesome, but I guess I care about, in the same way that I care about, the color theory behind the shirt that we're putting on the actor, or, I want to, I don't know, we're up in everybody's business a little bit.
I guess I'm personally kind of forgiving, but I'm very sensitive to anything that seems slightly unexpected that the client and agency might see too, you know?
Mhm.
Like anything that we haven't told them is going to happen, if they show up to
Yeah.
set and everything is like in silhouette,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
they're going to be freaking out. And I need to talk to the cinematographer about like, is this an intentional decision? Is this how the final thing is going to look? And
Mhm.
if so, why? And if I agree with the why, then I have to go sell it to the people paying the bills, you know? Anyhow, it's a fun conversation. I think it's kind of a long one. So the last thing I want to tell people about before we get in is that we do have a Patreon. The website is patreon.com/justshootitpod. It's where you can just give us $1, $2, $4, $8, $10, $16, anything that's divisible by 2, which is everything. And we really appreciate it. It helps keep the podcast going. Patreon.com/justshootitpod. And we'll get into the interview.
Without further delay, let's talk to Andy Riz.
Andy Riz, you shot Sinners. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm very proud of it.
Famously. No, welcome back. We're so excited to have you.
And may I ask, how many years has it been? Like, do you
25
know, like,
years. It's been 25 years.
25.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we're
one of
both
those-
childless cat men.
I think it's been 11 years to answer. I think it's
So Matt emailed me about doing the podcast in April of 2015. So only 10 years.
only 10 years.
Yeah. Wow. Well, congratulations. That's quite impressive.
Thank you.
We've been phoning it in for at least 8.5 years.
But you know what's more impressive is your career.
That's right. So the last time we spoke, you've probably just wrapped Pen 15, which, I think even at the time we knew was something special, that's something people were talking about, and that, was a show that had a visual identity that you were very proud of. And I think that resonated with people. For, younger listeners or people who don't remember Pen 15 as well as they should, that was a show on Hulu about created by 2 adult women playing the teenage versions of themselves in like the kind of cringiest, most emotionally volatile time of your lives, basically. So like they were like early high school, basically. Were they high school freshmen, I think is what it was. Is that right, Andy?
No. They are in, I forget what grade, but it's like junior high or maybe
Junior
even
high.
late middle school, something like
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah, somewhere.
But the difference, I think, with that is Pen 15 obviously was this kind of smash hit, but it was unexpected, right? Like when you started working on it, it wasn't like, oh, Andy, we're bringing you onto this giant project. It was like, oh, we're doing this thing. It's kind of experimental. It's got these 2 actresses that, kind of came out of UCB.
Yeah, I don't want to
know.
I don't want to denigrate it in any way, but it was kind of like an upgraded web series that then became a hit TV show.
100%. Yeah. No, it was very low budget. It was basically at this time where it felt like tiny shows that maybe would have been a web series just a few years earlier were
like a year earlier.
Yeah. Truly. It was really, and truly very little money. Like it felt like a web series some of the time.
Kind of like following in the Broad City footsteps, kind of that genre, right?
Yeah. I mean, but smaller. I cannot express how small it was. Like it really was. There was zero expectations. There was very few resources.
No one cared. All of that.
You
stuff.
shot it on VHS.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. That's all we could afford.
Before it was trendy. Now you can't afford it.
Right. But now you're here on this movie Friendship, which like already just from the cast, Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, like clearly you're a man that's in demand for what you do as a cinematographer.
Yeah, well, so just to say, so Friendship, because it's small. Like the budget is, it's the mid-single digit millions, I guess. So it's, I don't know what else to say.
5?
Between 4 and 7, right?
4.5 to 5.5.
Yeah, which, is a lot of money, but not that much money, right?
Yeah, we're shooting in New York. We were shooting in Yonkers outside of New York. And it's like there are no, even though we had Paul Rudd and all that, there were no Cape Mod, there were no trailers. Like nobody had any place to go. Like it felt like a proper indie film. We didn't have a lot of resources. We didn't know cranes for camera or lights. Like it felt like a proper indie film.
Is it true Kate Mara was setting her own flags and stuff?
Yeah,
Like
we
her own
needed her help
diffusion?
every once in a while. Yeah. She's really good with a bounce.
Yeah, she knows how she likes to be lit. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head though, in terms of like those indie thresholds. right? Like the first indie threshold between like, oh, we have no money and we have some money is, can you poop somewhere? Is there a honey wagon or something offsite? You're shaking your head. No, you couldn't poop somewhere. You had to poop in the house you were shooting in.
It was. I'm trying to remember because if we had some locations with a honey wagon, but no. I believe we had. It's sort of in the film. There are two homes, like it's two characters who are neighbors. So whichever one we're filming in, you go to the other one. I would at least go to the other house.
Yeah.
Wait, so you have like Paul Rudd, who's Ant-Man, and that guy doesn't bring like his own porta potty everywhere he goes?
Well, so that's the thing. And honestly, this is the magic of the movie is it's Tim Robinson. That's the reason Paul Rudd did the movie. Is he is a big fan of Tim Robinson. I am a big, and I think that is, in terms of like the per screen average, the sort of, it's just been selling everything out. I think we're discovering that the Tim Robinson heads are maybe a wider audience than some people thought.
A Gen Z audience. I'll say this.
And a culty kind of audience.
Yeah.
I am part of that cult. For sure.
Yeah.
I'm the old man in the cult.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah. Hello, fellow kids. I teach a class at Lee Strasberg, and at the top of every class, I always like ask them like, oh, what are you watching? Because I'm trying to teach them to be conversant in talking about what they're passionate about, because that's, the lingua franca of Hollywood, right? So a student was like, I haven't seen this yet, but I'm so excited to see Friendship. And most of them like haven't seen movies. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, that's a real indicator that everyone's like, yes, Friendship, this weird, dark indie movie, is the movie we are talking about this week.
Yeah. It's look, I as you guys know, like a career of whatever kind is full of like ups and downs and bumps, and like anytime you get something good, like it's a lot of it is luck. But I have to say, like, this project, this is my favorite thing I've ever shot. For sure.
But you've worked with both Matt and me.
That's right. Yeah.
It's true, but I think I wasn't counting like commercials and interviews.
Sure.
Obviously,
we shot 5 interviews.
Yeah. One time, Andy and I shot like 8 influencers tasting beers.
That is pretty cool.
That's true.
It's a flight of influencers.
It's a flight of influencers.
That's right. And a very nice beer sommelier, who I can't remember. Anyway, got to pay the bills somehow, guys. So let's talk about, we can fast forward to the movie, right? While you're on set, I remember...
can we just one question before we're on set? Is so you worked with Andy on Pen 15. You worked with Andy on Our Flag Means Death. He's obviously directed a ton of stuff. You've shot a ton of stuff. How did you guys reconnect for this? Did he come and say, hey, Andy, I'd like to meet, like get your take on how you would shoot this? Like, did you have to basically kind of pitch for the job, or did he just say, hey, it's your job if you want it?
Yeah, so it was, I mean, honestly, I still sort of don't understand. So we were shooting Our Flag Means Death. This would have been fall of 2023, I think.
Not that long ago.
And we were in New Zealand, and we were in the parking lot, and he was like, I wrote this script, and it's been going out, and I think we are maybe going to get a Paul Rudd, in which case, it'll get kind of moving in a real way. And if it goes, I'd love for you to shoot it. And he just, that's what he said. And I was like, well, of course, I'd be delighted. But I honestly like did not take it seriously, because, people say things, especially when you're on set. You're like, I'm only going to work with you for, whatever.
I've probably told like 50 DPs that exact sentence.
Yeah, I've heard it from you like 6 or 7 times.
Wait, was Tim Robinson attached at the time?
Yeah. So he wrote it for Tim Robinson without telling Tim. He didn't tell him until it was done, and he sent it to him. But he said, which I think now is like one of the quotes that goes around with it for the promos, is he sent it to Tim Robinson and said, I wrote this for you, and I want to shoot it like the master. And so
that came from him. He said, I want to shoot it like the master.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. So he's speaking your love language before you're even born.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I think the thing that was interesting about it, which is partially why I didn't take it seriously when he asked me, is he's directed like every good comedy show over the last 5 years. He's done some episodes, and everybody loves him. And so he's worked with all these cinematographers. And so I was just like, oh, I'm the one in front of him right now. Like
Sure.
I didn't really, I loved the idea, but I would not allow myself to take it seriously. And then it took another year. And then he gave me the call, was like, it's happening. Can you shoot? It's in New York. And, but yeah, there was no interview or anything. He just asked me, which I found very flattering because he, as I said, he works with all these different DPs, and he also, he has good taste. And so I take that as like, for whatever, I honestly don't know what it was. I've never spoken to him about why.
It's mystifying to me too.
Yeah, nobody gets it. It's the biggest mystery of the whole thing.
Well, I guess on that note, like the question that maybe Matt was teeing up to ask you, like, what is it about you, your relationship with the director? Like, what do you bring to the table when it comes to, beyond like knowing how to light a scene and how to, from the technical, like what kind of creative stuff are you guys talking about before you guys shoot the movie?
Yeah, like, because it's one thing to say like, hey, I want to shoot it like the master. And it's another to be like, well, this is how we're going to shoot it like the master, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot behind the question. And I think about this a bit because going back to Pen 15, like truly, while I was working before then, Pen 15 is what gave me like a career that anybody maybe has heard of, or that has given me any of a foundation, a leveled up or whatever. And I think a big part of that is Anna and Sam, the third creator, Sam Zwiebelman. They were really
also previously on the show, like around that same era.
I should hope. They really, we talked a lot about the look of it, and they really wanted it to feel, it was, there was no money, but they wanted it to feel like an indie film from like the late 90s, basically. We talked about Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly when or why this started, but I really liked back then, and it continue to now. I have a real resistance, I guess I should say, to lean like modern imaging. Like obviously if this project is right, great. But I often find that like when it's then I feel like it's artificial. Like it feels like artifice when lighting is too perfect and images are too perfect. And so I find that since Pen 15, because that was the first project where I felt my real fingerprints on something, where I was like, this is an aesthetic I like, and I messed it up. I was like making it a little noisy, a little grainy, lower contrast. Like, I assume it's because of my age and growing up watching indie films. Like I just assume that's what it comes from.
I think there is a little bit of like nostalgia to it. Like when you said, oh, teenage indie movies, like of course Welcome to the Dollhouse comes to mind. But like if you look at that movie, which I love and as a kid did not understand at all, it looks like the cheap. It looks like, oh, they shot like, I'm sure it was 16 millimeter. You know what I mean? It looked budget in a real way, in a way that like I'm sure Todd Solondz was mad about.
Yeah.
And so it's funny for us to be like, it's kind of the equivalent of like young kids like using DV8 tape now, like for their TikToks. Like that is a real trend where it's like hard to get like a PD 150 on the eBay now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No way.
I love that. I love hearing
Can I
that.
sell mine?
Can I have it?
Yes.
I do love the PD 150. I said PD 150. There's a couple other more like fetishized models that are like lower, like more consumer grade. But yeah, for sure. And like also like kids like teaching each other how to like hack them so that you don't have to use physical media. Like they've got like little, like basically like hard drives that you can like patch in so that you're not using tape literally all the time.
Really makes me happy. Like but I think that stuff is great. Like it's giving something a look, a personality. It's like making a choice.
Sure.
I think ultimately that honestly, it might be as simple as that. As I'm very fond of like making choices and like baking in looks and that kind of thing. And for almost every job I get, including the one I'm on now, is because of Pen 15. And I think because of that messy aesthetic. So I think I liked that aesthetic. I leaned into that. I had this one TV show that popped a bit, and I think it attracted other people to, like, people who are attracted to that aesthetic associated me a bit with that, or being able at least to do that in a thoughtful way. And for sure, that was something right away that Andy talked about is that he really did not want it to look digital. He did not want it to look like most things. And, I hate the idea, which I think, I don't know if this still exists or not, but the idea that comedy needs to be like brightly lit or always wide lenses, I'm very resistant to that. I think it's just wrong. Like I think it's silly to think that like a genre needs to look a certain way, which is when you see like Midsommar is a good example of like going against the grain.
Just like the funniest movie.
Horror.
Daylight.
Midsommar is pretty funny actually, but that's a different conversation.
Flower dress, come on. Yeah. Hilarious. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I do wonder if it's a certain flavor of comedy, because I've heard actually Seth Rogen was talking about that too. I think he was on Fresh Air or something, or Smartless, and they were talking about like the studio and how cinematic it is, and he was like, I hate that people think comedy has to be bright and like, not contrasty, but there is like, I feel like like when you do more satire, kind of even like the Tim Robinson type of comedy where you're not, if you're watching it alone, you don't quite know when you're supposed to start laughing, there is the aesthetic that takes itself a little more artistically and seriously, it lends to that type of comedy better than like a 30 Rock type of comedy,
Yeah, and I say all this, but I truly believe that like it's project to project, and I think that I tend to both be attracted to projects, but like people running certain types of projects are attracted to me that tend to fall in this like messy aesthetic, this dirty like, and which is lovely. I keep waiting. I keep thinking that, okay, there will be a project where we'll shoot it really clean and really clean. And it just keeps not happening, but I assume it will. It just hasn't.
Well, so it begs the question though, in between Pen 15 and Friendship, you did a lot of work where you were not the primary DP, right? Like you were stepping onto sets where like, not to say you were the DP for that episode, but the look had already been set. Right. So to your point of like, I feel like my fingerprints are on Pen 15 and they're on Friendship, but the job is to be fingerprint free. Put on those gloves for the TV shows where you're not the author of the look. How did you navigate that? And were there ways in which you kind of did insert your POV?
Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot because I've done that, I think 3 times, I think, where I did either a season. Well, yeah, I guess that was they were all season 2. A couple of those times I did nudge the aesthetic in a direction. I even changed like aspect ratio for reasons. I had pitches for like why.
Ego. Yeah.
Is there any other reason to do anything?
I don't know. I have a podcast. What do I know?
But yeah, it's difficult, honestly, like because I'm on a series right now and I am the alternating DP. And so thankfully, the aesthetic is, again, it's a good fit. They came to me because of Pen 15. And I'm working actually in the other DP is also the other DP. When I left Pen 15, he took over for me.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
And when I took over Single Drunk Female, he had shot the first season. So we have twice now or taken over for each other, I guess. So obviously in a similar aesthetic world as is Adam Silver. But yeah, I actually find it definitely more difficult to step into something where I can't just do what I think is right. Our Flag Means Death, what Mike Berlucci set the look for. And then when I was on season 2, I was after Nate Goodman and they have like a particular aesthetic. And so the good news is that everybody was like, do your thing. And, I have a pretty good understanding at this point in terms of like, I'm obsessed with the texture of images, like the grain, the noise levels, contrast levels. Like I have and especially with all the different cameras, a pretty good understanding of all that. And so it just becomes a little bit like, I assume like a musician maybe I have this tendency, I like to play this particular way, but I've played guitar for long enough that I can go in and like, yeah, I can play some country. And it does feel like you're kind of exercising maybe some different muscles a bit. Like it feels like, I've shot, I think I did some very rough math recently, and I've shot, I think it's like 130 or 150 episodes of various series. Like it's a lot now. and I see it in the gray of my beard. But I think that's a little bit of what it is.
That's why I shaved mine yesterday for that reason.
There you go. Mine's getting a little shorter as it's getting grayer.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you mind giving away some of your secrets of like how do you like technically achieve this aesthetic that you kind of talk about, like the friendship aesthetic, for instance?
Yeah. No, so I always call it recipes. I build like a little camera recipe, and then I tweak it as we go. And, my DIT, my colorist, like everybody has a little influence, and obviously my gaffer and key grip. But so friendship, I could tell you the exact recipe. So for friendship, I am a big fan of the Alexa Mini. We shot it on the original Alexa Mini, which nobody lets me shoot on anymore because its sensor isn't a native 4K. And, so
did you shoot 3.2K?
We shot 3.2K. We actually shot a little 2.8K as well, because there's like open gate and then not open gate. So
ARRI versus, all that.
Exactly.
Junk.
So we were kind of in that world a little bit, but so I love that camera for a few reasons, but I think it renders motion better than any other digital camera that exists. And I'm a little bit obsessive about motion. I find one of the things with all these digital cameras that drives me insane is how like it captures movement, and I think it has to do with readout speed and sharpness. Anyway, so it's Alexa Mini, but then also that sensor, that older generation of Alexa sensor, the way it breaks. I love how different sensors, or I love at least knowing how different sensors break, meaning like highlights clip, but really it's like once you crank the ISO. And as I was testing it, I was shooting the Alexa Mini. I started testing different ISOs, and on Pen 15, I think we shot it like 1280, and we just basically pushed it further. I shot the entire movie at 2000 ISO to bake in noise because I think that sensor breaks beautifully. I think it's like really beautiful image when it's broken, basically. So, and then, I have my lenses and filtration. And so I always wear filters. I do not like sharpness. I think it draws your eye to the wrong place. So basically the recipe was 2000 ISO for every single shot in the movie, soft FX,
like including like daytime exteriors and everything.
Yep. Everything, no matter what, 2000 ISO to get the grain, basically the like digital noise.
And is there like an f-stop that you guys are kind of hanging out in?
Yeah. Well, so what happened, and this was, I think, the most fun thing that happened basically immediately on day one. So we had Zeiss Master Primes, and then we had Ingenue Optimos, and there's this beefy
zoom lenses.
Zoom lenses, and they had a 24 to 290, which is a big, heavy lens. And
like you need to mount the lens separately from the camera.
Yeah. I mean, it's way heavier than it's like 3, 4, 5 cameras to equal the weight of that lens. It's a big boy. And I've used it before for specialty shots on Pen 15. Like I was familiar with it, but something about it, and Andy DeYoung likes long lenses and likes zooms. Yeah. And so I knew that going in. I knew he liked to be on the longer side and that he liked zooms. And I also happen to really enjoy zooms.
Just a random question, because Andy mainly directs comedy stuff. Yeah. And I think there is this kind of idea, and Matt, and especially me, have kind of been stuck in this commercial world for like the past 5 years. Jordan,
but even on my scripted stuff, I love.
Yeah, we think of like shooting like medium shots on like a 32 or 40 and doing wide shots.
Long, it's like, whoa, we're pulling the 50 out? Okay.
And then you see like a movie like Yorgos, those movies.
They're shooting on
9mm lenses. What's like, I guess it's strange to me to hear that like a prominent comedy director really likes to shoot on long lenses. Because those also seem like anti-comedy a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's what was so exciting about it and we ended up only bringing out our primes for a couple of special scenes, and 95% of the movie is shot on that zoom, and a lot of it is shot on the long end of that zoom. We're shooting at 200 millimeters. We're like long.
So you're like far away from the cast.
Yeah.
Right?
So how do you...
Like,
are you
Paul
moving
Rudd
the
doesn't
camera,
really
though?
recognize you. He's like, oh, that guy.
Are you guys moving the camera or just kind of panning and tilting on like sticks?
Yeah, panning until, but we had, I mean, one of my favorite combinations, like I say once, but this is not very long ago, I found myself, I made on like Pinterest, I made a vision board, I guess you'd call it, I don't even remember what brought it on, but I did it, and it was like constantly just like long lays of dolly track, and a dolly. And I was just like, I just love, like, I think I am probably the happiest when I am on a dolly with a zoom and it's
really
a long lay of track.
Like, what was that movie with Matt Damon when he's lost in the desert? I think it's like
Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said like the behind the scenes on that. It's like 2 miles of dolly track.
Really? I kind of just assumed it was all handheld.
No, because he's just like walking for these long uncut shots.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, there's a long like 15-minute shot in that is a sunrise. They're just walking and the sun comes up during the shot. It's incredible. That's what I want. I mean, I want to travel to work on a dolly. Like but it's, I assume you guys have had Charles Hood on this show at some point.
He was guest number 2.
2, maybe.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, so it's funny, like we talk about this aesthetic that I lean into and all that, but the truth is, like, over the years, I'm like, oh, right, that director got me into this. That director, like, there are influences, and I was anti-Zoom. I for various reasons for a long time, and then
everyone was kind of anti-Zoom, right? For a while there.
Well, I think honestly, it kind of comes out of when we came up, right? Like we're talking about, like, oh, all these old cameras that we think are so. Right. Like if the only image that you can get is something that is kind of like low res, and you're dreaming of shooting film or Hollywood movies, then you're just like, oh man, this PD-150 is such a bummer, even though you can make an incredible movie on it. Right.
Well, yeah. In the times, like when they shot The Conversation and all they had was film, and people had these amazing zoom shots. Like, I think Apocalypse Now has some, like, but then like you're saying, Matt, there came a time where all the video cameras had zoom lenses built in, and that's what we associated zooming with, is like the low budget home DIY filmmaking.
So what's the first thing when you finally like get on a film set?
Prime lenses.
You will, and not just prime lenses, a dolly, right? Yeah. Like being like, or you figure our handheld rig or whatever. You figure out how, or a steady cam, like adding movement where you're on a prime felt like the step up,
right? Moving the camera instead of.
Now I'm a one step closer to making it feel like a quote unquote real movie. Andy, when you were shooting a Go 90 show,
play-by-play and in the vault.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember you being like, oh man, I love to bury zooms now. And I think that unlocked something for me as well.
Can you just tell us real quick what you mean by burying a zoom?
So essentially you're combining a dolly move and a zoom, right? So say you're tracking forward in space, but you're also zooming at the same time, not to create some sort of vertigo effect, but to essentially
to get to your end frame faster.
Exactly. And when you're moving, if you're zooming and moving on the same direction, that's less exciting than like zooming while you're panning, while you're dollying. All of a sudden you're really like hiding different things and creating more mood and tone than you would have if you were just on a prime, I feel.
Yeah. It's slightly less annoying than when the DP's like, don't worry, we'll just do an iris rack. And you're like, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
And it never does.
How dare you? I love an iris pull. I'll bet you I have a whole slew of shots where you don't see the iris pull.
Really? So for listeners, an iris pull is like when you change the exposure of the camera in the middle of the shot, but it's usually kind of ugly when it's noticeable, and it's really hard to not notice it. It was kind of impossible in the digital days because you would see the step, like when someone would go from an exterior to an interior.
You'd feel the click almost to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, a part of like what was exciting about the dolly and the zoom is that you could, because Charles, who really got me into it and really got me to think about, like, open my mind in terms of ways to cover scenes, is he really believes in less coverage. And so it allows you to like find a close-up and a wide and a medium, and then as actors are walking, maybe you start to focus on someone else. So it's like it's staging and blocking. It's
Mhm.
camera and actors, and it just gives you a little more freedom of movement and gets you more sizes. But burying a zoom is the idea that it's sort of not imperceptible, but that it doesn't draw attention to itself.
Mhm.
And so that
Mhm.
it feels natural, but yet instead of just being one shot, it suddenly feels like 4 different setups. And that's something that I would love to get better at. I think it's like it's, honestly, it's what Spielberg is such a master at, who's a
Mhm.
director who I was like very dismissive of, I was
No,
like
really?
too snobby. Yeah, there was a time where I was just too snobby. He was like big
You're like
Hollywood
Schindler's
and
List,
like,
whatever.
I mean, kinda.
Stop
Yeah.
complaining. I mean, it is kind of like a 70s thing, right? Like you think of like Mike Nichols and The Graduate, or you think of just these movies like Roman Polanski, like, or Cassavetes, like when, like you said, you don't have like unlimited film and unlimited angles and unlimited shots. And they're trying to like find a scene, and it's like, what's the least number of shots that we can tell this story in? And like, it's helpful when you're moving the camera and zooming and reframing to get
Yeah, but
every beat,
honestly,
right?
yeah, and I think of it as like craftsmanship. I think it's much harder because I get into, and at TV, this is very common. It's so easy to walk in and be like, yeah, we'll get a wide, we'll get a 2-shot, we'll
Close
get a
it down.
close up, we'll get a close
Sure.
up. Like that's how almost everything looks, and it's a way to try and kind of be more thoughtful about it. And I am a big believer in breadth, like
Mhm.
allowing, if it cut. I think that it's hard to stay engaged in something like that. I really believe that if you can linger, if you can allow actors to move through space and let the audience sit with them, that it enhances engagement,
Yeah.
like an immersion of some sort.
I love all of that. I think the tricky thing in hearing you say all of those things is that it requires Final Cut. Like you kind of have to be the auteur, quote unquote, in order to be able to pull that off, because coverage is for studio notes, coverage is for runtime, right? Like those other factors of like, it's a hard 30 or it's a hard 22 and a half or whatever those things are, that's coverage is for covering your ass in that sense. You know what I
That's
mean?
also why feature films tend to be more artistically satisfying, from a film craft point of view than TV, because the person designing the shots also tends to have a bigger hand in
Sure.
seeing them to the end. What's your policy, actually, Andy? I'm curious to hear you. But in terms of like having an on-set LUT that everyone is looking at the screen, because there's a lot of, I feel like, back in the day before we were shooting log, like you'd kind of be watching Rec 709, you kind of try to put in some settings on the camera to make it look good. Then we all started shooting log in log space when, the Alexa came out and everything. And then we just put this like Rec 709 look on the monitor just so no one would be freaking out. And then slowly, especially with the Alexa 35, I feel like is when a lot of serious DPs started being like, oh, let's start putting the looks on set. And a lot of the Sony Venice people do that, and Blackmagic, and so now it's weird because we were talking about feature directors and how they maybe have a little more control over the final product than a TV director, who has probably even a little more control over the final product than a commercial director. And so now as a commercial director, we have to do all these sneaky things to try to get our version of the look to the final product. And one thing you can do is you can try to kind of bake the look into the proxies, right? Which is the low resolution versions of what you're capturing that they're editing with. And hopefully people start falling in love with what that looks like. And the final
it's
color
a subliminal
is close
game.
to that.
Yeah. To me, it's more because like also going back to like when we were shooting log, I don't know if you guys ever had this happen, but like it even sort of happened to me where like, you're like, oh, the contrast is too high. Like I want it, where'd that milky, misty sort of look go, right? Like you guys remember the first season or two of Transparent, the Joey Soloway show, like on Prime?
Yeah.
It was like, it looked log. It was like there's no contrast in it at all.
I think there was a Lana Del Rey video that was released in log because then she just like loved the look.
Yeah, because you fall in love with it. So now I don't I'll bake in proxies, but I'm not trying to pull one over on anything. But I do believe that you fall in love with the image on set. And so if you aren't intending for it to be 7 or 9, then everyone, client, producers, and even myself, I will start to like the thing that we were shooting, basically. So Andy, what do you do?
Yeah, you guys are talking about a lot of things that I have strong feelings about. So I want to come back to the log things. There's something interesting there, but I'll stick to this for a moment. So yeah, I for sure. Sometimes the ideal is that we build a LUT for the project, and but often I'll end up just choosing one of the LUTs that's already in camera, but I light to it. And so anything that and I change my color temperature constantly. Like I'm building
like within
the
a
look
scene or
within a scene. Yeah. I will.
Wait,
I will,
sorry, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm glitching.
Not during a shot. No.
But still in a scene, you're gonna adjust the
like
color
when you
temperature.
do a new angle.
Yeah. Okay, the close up on Oren is one color temp, and the close up on
No.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
I was
But that will happen. I'll do that, but in order to match things,
I see.
I won't do anything. So but if one side feels like it needs to be warmer because the other side was, whatever. But what you're saying about people, I actually want to say 100% of the time, the people fall in love with whatever they're editing. Like the look they're used to is what they want. And then you can sweeten it. But often, even if you say like, hey, when we get to the grade, we're going to do this.
Nope.
People get used to things.
Yep.
And then honestly, as I'm moving along in my career, it feels like color time is just consistently shrinking. And so I'm not getting a lot of time in post. So that the idea of we're going to do this in post, it's like, no, I barely get enough time to just like smooth things out. It's really, so I'm a big believer in getting it, but that's also what I love the most. Production is what I love the most. I love shooting the most. So
I have noticed in the last 2 jobs that you and I have done together at Wrap, I'm like about to leave, everyone was working very hard, packing things up, and I'm like, goodbye. And I'm like, where's Andy? I'll say goodbye to Andy. You are with the DIT.
Yeah. I really want to make sure that what is coming out, what is leaving set, is as close as I can, depending on what we're working on, as close to what I want it to look like then, because in a lot of cases, I will never see it again.
Yeah, it's funny. I can't tell you guys how many times I've gotten like a final edit from clients or something and they've done their color on it. And I bring it into my editing system and I just set the opacity to 50% and put it over the onset LUT, like proxies, just to get some of that color that I fell in love with on set back into to kind of split the difference, because I'm into kind of being happy with what's in the camera.
And I think that's just, and it's natural. Like that's what people are looking at every day. So there's nothing wrong with it. Like, and again, it's making choices on set that I like. So like that it's fitting. I did want to go back. You guys mentioned something that it's something I think about a lot. And the two of you always seem pretty plugged into like what is happening currently. You're familiar with directors and all that stuff. So I had found, because friendship, we ended up aspect ratio, it's 1:6:6, which is like a little bit boxier than a 16:9,
but not 2:1.
But not 2:1.
But
yeah, because 2:1 would go the other way, not 4:3.
Yeah, sorry.
So it's like slightly boxier.
Right, because 4:3 is 1.33, like 1.33, right? And 16:9 is 1.78, and you're at 1.66, so somewhere in between.
Got it.
Yeah, and it, all these things we're talking about, like I truly, these are artistic choices because of character or story. Like I always try to tie those in. But what I wanted to say is, because very late in pre-production, Andy and I were talking about aspect ratio, and Andy was kind of interested in like, and I honestly, especially with Tim Robinson, who I think has an incredibly cinematic face. I think he has like kind of a 70s character actor face. I'm obsessed with his whole head. I love, if you watch Friendship, knowing I'm obsessive about his head, you can see me trying
his profile, for sure. Yeah.
I
totally.
love it.
That's really funny.
And so I actually thought like a 4-3, like a boxy, like that, his character, you can even see in my compositions, I find his character is like kind of stiff. And so I wanted it to feel stiff when we photographed him. And so this is all going to come back, but we were talking about a 4-3, but it had Saltburn had just come out, and there
It's
are
a
a bunch
little
of
play.
music videos. Yeah. And so it's trends that and for a lot of the reason these trends start is because of technical advancements. So the log thing, we started getting all these flat images, and that was like a new thing to help you color it and get more out of the footage, but people would see it. And so flat images became a trend. And so I try really hard to pay attention to trends so that I don't just fall into it, even though I absolutely want to. Like there was a time where teal and pink was like a visual trend because we were getting these RGB colored capable lights. And so because you guys, I think from what I know of you, you tend to be aware of what people are doing, what different directors are doing, different commercial spots and all that. And I feel like it's really important to watch, and it doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just important to know, like, if I'm doing this, it might blend a little bit more. And I think for a lot of our choices with friendship, we were trying to not fall into trends.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's like the 4x3 thing just became like a fun, sexy thing for a minute. I think that we are going to see a lot more of it as the Alexa 35 becomes more and more popular, because when you're shooting open gate, and you guys keep me honest because I'm out of my depth here, but shooting open gate, you get that aspect ratio, give or take. And having just shot it a couple times, you're like, oh, this is nice. Back to our initial point of like, you fall in love with whatever you're seeing.
Because it's new. It's exciting.
It's not just new. I think that 4x3 is, there's a reason.
It's like very retro also. Like
yes, but
that's like
also,
we grew up in our age watching movies in 4x3. Like
and shooting movies in 4x3.
Blazing Saddles, in 4x3.
Yeah. It's just all your favorite movies you saw that way, right? But I think also compositionally, a boxier image, to your point, Andy, is really nice for faces, right? Like when we shoot, with our iPhone, I think we're all from an era where once upon a time we said like, oh, I'm always going to shoot horizontal. And I guarantee all of us enjoy and don't even think about shooting vertically now. Portraits are great in vertical. They're so fun, right? Like if you're just shooting a snapshot on your phone, right?
I'm still horizontal.
My thought now is anything might go on Instagram. And so I just default to vertical because it's so annoying when you don't have like that negative space to put text on on an image.
But also aesthetically, there's something nice about it. What format are you shooting for, right? Like if you're going to put the, beautiful still up on your wall, sure, horizontal makes sense. But like if you're going to post it on Instagram, you can find something aesthetically pleasing that's 9x16. And I guess what I'm getting at is that shooting portraits, especially when it's comedy, especially when you're shooting, Friendship is a movie that intentionally takes place in very mundane environments. The most exotic environments in your film, no spoilers, are still dirty and gross and sad, right?
And isn't there, I haven't seen the movie, but from watching the trailer, it seems like there's this idea of just people getting close to each other that maybe don't want to be close to each other, And that, to me, like the boxier the frame. Yeah. For closer, you have to put the actors to each other.
Yeah, if they were in scope,
them.
Paul Rudd's on one end and Tim's on the other. It's like,
these are real like we had long creative conversations that with all this, like why this, why that, and then also you have your instinct. You're like, well, I kind of feel like that, but we would talk. We had a lot of really like meandering conversations about everything, things that never touched technical, that never touched filmmaking. We would just talk about like male friendships. We really had we spent a lot of time in prep just kind of talking and pulling on threads, and then I would sit for a long time and try to figure out then try to translate these philosophical discussions into something visual, which was I really love. I think that's honestly like a big part of my job, is just taking, like, really trying to understand whatever it is, be it a philosophical meandering about what it is to be a man in the modern world, and like then making that something visual, and then that is its own path, and it kind of goes in all manner of directions, but it ultimately lands in something technical.
Can you give us for instance of something where you took a theoretical idea and implemented it in a dogmatic sort of way, right? Like, do you have a set of rules? Do you have a set of like, yes and no, like
You're
we do
talking
this
specifically
do's
for
and
friendship,
don'ts specifically for friendship. Yeah.
like how you cover a scene and stuff. You mean
Yeah, but not just how, but the why behind
why?
it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned it briefly a moment ago. Like, compositionally, there's something very, for me, I get excited. I've seen this movie now, I think 4 times in a theater, like at festivals and at the Vista recently. And I love watching the edges of the frames, because I was really strict, because again, his character, and I did this with, there's a whole color thing going on in the movie. His character is like normal, but there are like rules. This is, you go to a movie, it's going to be a Marvel movie. Like, that's what a normal
Mhm.
person
A Marvel.
does. A Marvel, yeah. And if you watch the frames in that movie, specifically with Tim's character, I was really strict about the architecture. Is like that you will have straight lines. There will be straight lines. There are no curves in this. The floor will be straight. The walls will be straight. The deep hallway, it is straight lined, because that's what he is. He doesn't fall out of rhythm. It is like, no, this is normal. This is how things are structured. And our society is that way. Like, it is buildings. It is like everything is straight, straight, straight. And so compositionally, it was important to me to have that visual, like the language around him. The mise en scène is like, that is what he is as a character. And so I wanted that to be related in the frames that he lived in. And then when he meets Paul, you start seeing curves, and they're like, and I like that stuff excites me, and nobody should ever notice it conscious, but it's the idea that at worst, it gives me a clarity of thought and gives me something that I'm like, there's a consistency and a thoughtfulness. That's the worst case scenario. But the best case is that there is something that happens subconsciously with all this thing, which I love thinking. It's just fun. Like,
Yeah.
but I also believe in it. And I think that
And
stuff
it's something. This is something you worked out with the director. Or you were just doing it without. You're just sneaking it in without telling him.
I don't think we talked about that straight line thing. The color schemes, we definitely talked about the color scheme. And I worked really closely with Rocio, who was our production designer. I started before her, which isn't usually the case, because I think she was on another project. And I had started building out a color scheme for each character, for Paul's character, for Tim's character, and for Kate Mara's character. And
how does that manifest itself, like in wardrobe and like where they live?
So it was more about the spaces. So Chloe, the costume designer, we brought this to her, and because Andy was like, didn't want it to be stylized, so he was really like,
be careful,
light touch. Be very
Yeah.
careful. We don't want this to be Wes Anderson. We want it to be very natural, and which Rocio and I were really on the same page about. But we also really believe, like, you see in Tim, like, it's
beige.
Tim's.
He's khaki and brown. Yeah.
And that's all Chloe, the costume designer. She really built that. But what we started doing to his space was, it's like browns, greens, and blues. And, his wife is like lilacs, and she works with flowers and pinks. And then Paul is like warm orange, a lot of Southwestern kind of colors. But I kept calling it infecting each other, that their colors would start to infect the other person. And if you watch the movie just thinking about Paul's character being like oranges and reds, and you just watch Tim's journey with oranges and reds, you will see there are some scenes where it's insane, where it's like he walks into a room and it is only red. But it's motivated. Oh, he's at a club, or when they go through the sewer system and there's like a room and so it's like all these little things, little hints. And then Craig, I gave him these like sickly green lights here and there, which was, Andy gave me a whole list of movies that he liked. And so I like figured out ways to incorporate things that that's a big part of what I like to do, is figure out the director. I want to just know everything that they like, not just for the project, but in general.
Oh, in general.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just their taste, and just really.
What's the order?
Oh my God. I don't remember. And it's
Andy.
exactly the kind of thing. Well, yeah, so that's it. I'm not getting the next one.
I've been thinking a lot about just like not worrying about trends, like not trying to obviously not trying to actively do them, but not trying to actively avoid them either, because they all come from a reason. And I think you're right, because we talk to so many directors and we're also pitching all the time and thinking of how to get jobs and
iterating really quickly. Like 3 weeks from now, we're on to the next thing. So like you get to like dabble a little bit. Anyway, sorry.
But I do notice these things where I'm like, ooh, I really love wide shots. I love wide shots. I love wide shots. I love wide lenses. And it's like, and this a couple of months ago, it hit me like, oh, it's probably because everyone's asking me to shoot 9x16 and 16x9 for, in the same frame. And so I'm just starting to like think about it. And like what Matt were saying about like the open gate, now we're all of a sudden we're getting these extra pixels and we're like, well, that sky is really beautiful. And it's not in my 2:1 crop, which is, we had a whole episode on aspect ratios where I was like 2:1. That's like the perfect aspect ratio for everything. Basically, it's like the Netflix House of Cards. It's like you're not losing a ton of pixels on the top and bottom, but it also feels cinematic. And now I'm like, whatever. I actually just shot something and I convinced them to do 2:1. And then as we were editing, I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to see if I can convince them to go to 4:3. And they said no. Which is,
Imagine if you were like, hey, commercials, like commercial company, agency, what if we made your commercials smaller? Right. That's
4:3 is closer to the 1:1 that they want for some social anyway. And
Sure. Yeah.
So I do think like those, but if you watch movies from the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or like Spielberg time, like they do have a commonality between them. And
well, they also had different shaped screens. You could just move the curtains.
Right.
Like now we all know that almost like 99% of every viewer is going to see it on a TV in a 16:9 aspect ratio, right?
Right. For a movie. Yeah.
For a movie. Yeah. So like cutting into that does have aesthetic impact, right? That is going to be something you have to be conscious of,
Yeah. Did you guys actually, if you guys did 1:6:6, did you reframe it all in post, or was it just a center crop the whole movie? And were you monitoring on set in 1:6:6?
Yeah, on set. Yeah, it's the same. Just like with the LUT and the colors, like what people are watching on set, I want to be as close to the finished product as possible. Is the idea.
It's all intentional.
Yeah, it's all and look, I think that's a big part of it. Is I think I tend to work in long form narrative. So for me, I get to really like sit in something for a long time, and I get to be very thoughtful about it. And I think that's part of the joy. But, when I have had the opportunity to be on a commercial, the mentality is it's so much faster and shorter. And if I were shooting a bunch of commercials in like a 3-month span, I think it would be a lot more about like, I just shot 235, like I just shot anamorphic. Now I want to I think it
You're looking
lends
for
itself
variety.
which I think is also great. Like last year I shot 3 different projects, and they were all different aspect ratios. But there were certain similarities that they had. But I think that's a big part of it. Is like if you're doing shorter and more frequent, it makes perfect sense. So you're like, I want to do this one all wide. I want to do this one all long, or whatever.
Yeah,
I think that's.
But the trends definitely are there also, and there's this I guess I would call her like a cinematography influencer. Her name is Valentina V, and she's kind of like the poster child of like a DIY kind of prosumer filmmaker that is like kind of dabbling in professional. She kind of Aperture, which is also the prototype of the company that was for like home filmmakers, and now is just on every set you're on.
I remember Andy's face from a series of Aperture videos from about 10 years ago, I'd guess.
Yeah, I've worked with Aperture quite a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And so she's kind of in that same, very kind of specific slice of people that went from, I have my Sony A7S, and now I'm actually working with like The Rock on a promo or something, And she had posted this thing like maybe 2 years ago on Twitter where she's like, she had this realization that shooting at a deeper stop is like at a 4 or 5, 6 is like what a lot of professional filmmakers do. Because, there's as when the Canon 5D came out and the DSLRs and the mirrorless, and everyone wanted things to look more filmic. They were shooting at like a 2.8, and then the Master Primes came out. And everyone's like, we can shoot at a 1.8, like a 1.6, at a 1.2, like, and everyone was like so stoked on these shallow depth of fields. You can be on a super wide lens, on a 20 mil lens, and still get shallow depth of field that everyone's shooting wide open. And then like all these kind of young people that were coming up didn't realize like, oh, Steven Spielberg or James Cameron, these guys aren't shooting at a 2.8. They're creating these epic sets with lots of things to look at, and they want you to see them. They're actually fighting the stop sometimes because they want two things to be in focus that are on different planes. And I don't know. I think it's fascinating just seeing like from the TikTok to the like IMAX Sinners movies and how those things affect each other and change. And that's why I was kind of curious about like the stops that you guys shoot at. Like, are you know?
Oh yeah, which I didn't end up answering. So just because I talked about lenses, because our zoom lens was, I believe it's a 2.9, we had to always shoot at least at a 2.9. Like and so we were generally, which is so not quite 2.8. So between there and a 4 was generally, and then certain special cases when we would bust out the primes, there were certain special shots that for certain reasons we'd be like, I want to shoot this shot shallow. Very few of them, but they were like specially chosen to shoot like shallower. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, yeah, Matt, what do you think? Should people watch this movie?
I definitely think they should watch this movie. I do have one more question, actually. There are bona fide, honest to goodness movie stars in this movie, but it still feels budget, right? When did you know that you had something special on your hands?
Pretty early, honestly. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the outside world, I never knew how it would, but very soon I was like, oh, I am going to be into this. Like, I'm excited about this. Pretty early on. And honestly, so when I read the script, really loved it, of course, but I was worried about the main character, Craig, played by Tim Robinson. I was like, man, I don't know. Like, are people going to be able to like him? Because there are some choices that are made, and
he's a weird guy.
Yeah, and Rocio at some point asked, like, how is Tim going to play this? Because we were all familiar with I Think You Should Leave, and it can be like very big, and the first day, like as soon as we started watching the performance, like almost immediately, I was like, this is going to work. Like, this is going to work. And so I knew the performance would be there. And then a big part was, Andy and I kept talking about on set. Both of us work in TV all the time. I'm on a TV show now. He is too. We both love TV. It's been very kind to us, but we kept saying like, we do not want to shoot TV. This is not TV. How do we make this not TV? And so we really like our coverage, the way we approach scenes were very non-traditional. And that was exciting to the film nerd in me. But then watching Tim, and there was something Andy said to me that, a Pitchapong, he did Uncle Bone Me. What's the rest of the title of that movie? It's like, it's the Palme d'Or, like Cannes winning filmmaker, but like not like a Western filmmaker, like slow, long shots. And he was like, I like the idea of like in a Pitchapong movie with Tim Robinson in it. Like, what does that look like? And so it's like an art house film, but Tim Robinson is like, what does that look like? And we were really trying to resist the urge to shoot it normal, because we were like, that's special. Like, talk about a special recipe. Like, that's that's something. And I really, so pretty quickly, I was like, I don't know what this will do, but this is something.
So, and I can remember when you first told me, told me that you were doing this thing. It's always interesting when people talk about their work, because like they pick out specific details, right? And I think the headline was like Tim Robinson, Andy DeYoung, Paul Rudd, right? And the kind of cool, and I'll be in New York. And so it would be an easy guess to know that like people like us are going to like it, right? But the idea of like it breaking out, and look, that's still to be seen, right? Like we're in the bubble of like every person we know is loving it and having a great time. We live in Los Angeles in comedy, etc. But like it does seem like it's on a trajectory where it's going to find a more mainstream audience than was an easy guarantee at top. Did you have any of those indicators? What was the moment where you were like, oh, like a normal person likes this movie? Do you know what I mean?
I still, I mean, everybody's really enthusiastic about what it did in its limited opening weekend. But even that's what I keep saying is I'm like, look, you're talking about LA and New York and like the Vista, and like this is built for that audience. Like those are the people who are going to love it the most. So I don't know. I certainly, other people are very optimistic about it, especially with just how it did on that opening weekend. But I hope it'd be nice. It'd be good for my career, I assume, if it does well.
Well,
but
I guess the upside is it's already good for your career.
It's
right.
Truly. Well, that's the thing is I'm finding like, again, going back to that aesthetic, like I have I don't take every project that comes my way. I can't be that picky, like, but I don't take everything. Like I am trying to navigate because there are certain things that I respond to and certain things that I don't. And then they aren't judgments.
You're still going to do my son's bar mitzvah though, is that?
So I cannot wait. Zoom.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. And I'm excited to see what it does. But I do think it's different. Like you're in a cool theater, Quentin Tarantino's theater. Like, yeah, people are probably going to dig it. Like that's the audience for it. So I'm very curious what happens when it goes wider.
I saw it at like 1 p.m. and like the theater was like half full, like in a good way. Do you know what I mean? I remember because I went to Oren's neck of the woods and I said to my wife, I was like, oh, this is the difference between our neighborhoods. Like people can go see a movie at 1 p.m. and on a Monday in Los
Feliz, land of
in North
freelancers.
Hollywood. Yeah. It's like, no, we're all at work, dude.
Yeah. No, it's true. So yeah, I'm dying to see it in honestly, I want to see it in Burbank, which is still like, it's still LA. So it's not like an indicator, but that's like more
or go watch it in Orange County
industry. Yeah, like that's kind of what I just want to see how it feels in a less full. Although to say, I think the biggest blessing, and this is what I would say to anybody who's thinking about seeing the movie, is it's just the biggest blessing, other than I love it and all that stuff, is it's reminded me of how fucking fun it is to see a comedy with a crowd.
Yeah.
Holy shit. It's unbelievable. And it's so rare now. So I really it's like the same way that you want to see Sinners in IMAX. You want to see Friendship with a crowd. Like it's a special experience.
Is it not a horror? It's just comedy or like a psychological thriller? I guess I don't know why. The trailer made me think.
They play a little bit in the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, we shot it it's shot like a drama, like a 70s thrillerish drama in some way. But it's straight comedy. I mean, it is. It's a dark one, but it's,
Yeah.
And do you know,
he's just frustrated.
Did Andy DeYoung know Tim Robinson before he wrote a movie for him?
Yeah, they had met some years ago. They had met and like befriended each other, and then he started writing this movie because he had an experience. He had an experience where he thought he had just made a cool friend, and then he got ghosted.
Oh, so he's the Tim.
He's Tim. Yeah,
great. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But Matt, maybe that's the move. Maybe we just like
ghost people.
No, just write a movie for someone.
Yeah,
and be like, hey. Yeah. Kevin Spacey, I wrote this movie for you.
Are you free?
Okay, cool. Well, Andy, this is awesome. If people want to follow you, you're pretty active on Instagram, right?
I mean, honestly, I feel like Instagram is kind of like a work thing these days. So it's not like, But anyway, I'm there. That's the only place I am. So there's no other place to go. So at Film Andy.
Film Andy, Andy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. We'll keep an eye out for your new television show. Do you have a minute or two more to endorse with us?
I have all the minutes.
Nice.
Unpaid endorsements.
Okay, so my unpaid endorsement, don't roll your eyes at me, Oren.
Yeah.
Upgrading to Pro on Letterboxd is the best. It's really fun. It's $20 for the year. And actually, if you wait for a while, they always have like a Black Friday sale. So that's a long ways away from now, but like you can save yourself a little bit of money, but $20. But it does unlock some fun features that I really like. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of them, because most of them, the ones that they broadcast the most, you're like, yeah, that's cool. It's nice to see like some of your stats and like, oh, like your own like custom posters for movies and stuff. That's all cool. But the thing that I like the most, there's two things. One, in my watch list, I can sort by streaming service, which is the reason I got it in the first place. So like, okay, I've got a watch list with, I don't know, 100 movies on it, but I know I'm going to fall asleep halfway through and I'm going to want to watch the second half tomorrow, so I don't want to rent it. So, okay, I'm subscribed to these services. All of a sudden that list becomes 25 movies or whatever. Great way to figure things out. But then also you can, in your profile, your stats literally at the very bottom of your profile, I go to all-time stats, and then I can see not just like, oh, every film that I've logged, how many hours, how many directors, all that stuff. But then if you scroll down past what, your preferences, you can get to list progress. This is my favorite thing. So I've seen 40% of the Letterboxd top 250 movies. And if I click on that, it'll show me, okay, these are the ones that I've missed. Oh, IMDb top 250, Oscar winners, Cannes d'Or winners. Like you get to like all of those kind of like, lists that I've been thinking about and chasing my whole life, like AFI top 100, Roger Ebert's best. You get to see how you're doing on all of those. And it's just a quick, fun way to like add some stuff to your watch list that you maybe had overbooked or hadn't seen before. I'm at 91% of the AFI 100 years, 100 movies. So I've got my homework.
Amazing.
Pretty impressive, actually.
I've been working on it for 100 years.
Excuse me.
But that's the reason to upgrade, is what I'm saying.
Thoroughly unconvinced, but thanks.
Maybe I won over Andy.
No, that's pretty. And $20 a year is that's acceptable. Like I'm
for the best, but the best social media platform, or at least my favorite. Well worth it. Well worth it. Andy, what you got?
Well, so I think I'm gonna cheat, but I have backups.
You can do more than one.
Okay.
Yeah,
I may.
You just can't get paid for an unpaid endorsement.
Yeah, okay,
right?
Fair. I remember what my unpaid endorsement was when I was on hundreds of episodes ago, and I'm going to use the same one because I continue to use it all the time.
Wait, hold on.
Bidet.
Yeah. No, is it Shot Designer?
Oh, no.
Oren, you got a guess?
109. Is it like notation? Is it an app?
No.
Okay.
No, okay. My backups are apps. No, it is lap desk. I call it pillow desk. It's like a little soft thing with a hard top, and you put your laptop on it. I last year I shot in New York, I shot in Toronto, I shot in Vancouver. I was not home, so I'm not like at my desk. I'm exhausted most of the time. I sit in bed and I do a ton of my work and it's like what they're like. I don't know. They're getting a little fancier these days. So I think maybe they're like closer to $30-$40 or something, but you can find it cheap.
But you're traveling with it?
No, now when I go, I buy one. It's like within the first week, I go to some store, some superstore or whatever, and I buy one.
Oh, really?
You just go to the Walmart or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I find it indispensable. It is, I don't know how I can live without it at this point. Like at my house, I have 3. I have one in the house, I have one in the garage, and I have one that's like the trashy one. So I can take it outside, throw it in the car or whatever. I'm at an Airbnb currently. I have one with me here.
No, we're not talking about the ones that have they're like little tables that a leg comes down on either side of your legs. You're saying no, it's just a pillow on your lap.
It's a pillow with a hard top. So it's like a hard surface with like a soft thing underneath it. So you can just put it on your lap.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Why not just use a pillow? Your laptop is rigid.
Yeah. So I have done that in a pinch. But it slides around. It like moves when you move your body, the whole thing. And as you type, it's like, oh, it's a little weighted on the left. It's weighted on the right.
And you're just sitting in a chair with the pillow desk?
In a chair, I tend to sit in bed.
Yeah.
That's where I find like, and you sit cross-legged, you sit with your legs out. It works. That's the magic of the pillow desk. It's, oh yeah.
Well, that
Does it
Oren
look like
just
a
pulled up.
giant diaper?
It looks like a giant diaper. Yeah. Yeah. That I don't think this is what you're endorsing.
You're
No,
talking
no,
more
I
like this type of thing.
No, no.
right?
Yeah.
Andy wears his diaper separate all the time.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
want to be able to get up with your diaper.
Interesting. So not one of these desks. Okay,
No.
but one of these.
Yeah, that now you're talking. That's a beauty right there. I don't
Okay.
like that most of them have some little like nub or stopper on the bottom. They have it there. I actually prefer it without, but it's hard to find without. So that's a good one right there. I fully
Okay,
support
we're looking
that.
at the Lap Gear Designer lap desk on Amazon.
Mhm.
$33.
Yeah, $33 and change your life. Look at how happy I am.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good one, and I might actually purchase one. Great. Well,
Is that all, Andy, or you want to throw an app in there too? Do you feel good about the other ones or no?
Yeah, I do. I Blackmagic Camera app, which I think
yes.
might be free.
I think it is.
We love it.
Yeah, I would assume that's been thrown out here before, but it's really like it's pretty powerful. It's pretty impressive what you can do with that, and that's like my default now. Every job, there's some iPhone shots on the one I'm on currently. There are a lot of FaceTimes and that kind of thing, and that's the app, and you know, I it's incredible to me that it's, I believe, free, and that's crazy.
It's free, and there's two other things aside from being free that I find much better than Filmic Pro. Not to rip on other fellow software, but one is you can shoot in log and H.264 at the same time. Because if you want to shoot log on the native phone app, you can only do it in ProRes, and it just like goes through your data, your storage space really fast. But the Blackmagic app lets you do log H.264, kind of like a Sony A7S would. And the other thing, which is huge, like what does the iPhone do better than any other camera in the world?
Stabilization.
Yep. Filmic Pro, at least last time I used it, there's no stabilization. On Blackmagic, you can choose which stabilization mode, like the sports mode,
That's cool.
yeah. So it's awesome. Not to mention
How
all
is
the
it with
manual settings.
Overheating. Because I use Filmic Pro.
Really? Is that a thing?
We had ice packs. We had cameras.
On your phone?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I did, look, to be fair, it was July in San Antonio. So like it's a hot friggin' day, but we had multiple phones and we were literally sandwiching them in ice packs and rotating through because they were just like overheating and stopping.
Oh, interesting.
All the time.
I've never stress tested it like that, but
I mean, we were shooting.
but my
a
kid
commercial
looks
on
pretty
them,
cute.
So
in it,
yeah.
running around.
Yeah. If your phone ever overheated, you'd be like, oh well, there goes that memory. Like
No, but I like using it on set for like kind of previs and stuff because you can get especially if you have kind of weird colored lights and things where your auto white balance is like, or auto exposure is going all over the place.
that's really smart.
You can
That's
set
smart.
this, and you can also shoot. You can set your shutter speed, which sometimes it can help you analyze like fluorescent lights, flickering, all that stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah, I use it for that a lot, which is I did it today. I was on a scout and there were some LEDs and I opened the Blackmagic app and I'm not positive that it's always like a 1-to-1, but
Sure.
it
But an indicator
should be
for
in
sure.
the zone.
Yeah, that's cool.
Kaplan.
Well, I have two super domestic ones. Number one, my parents were like, hey, we have a rice cooker. Do you want it? And I'm kind of growing up. I grew up in Orange County. Most of my friends were Asian. Pretty much all of them. Like I would go to their house and they would have like this giant like dispenser of rice, like raw rice. And they'd have like this big rice cooker. And they always had like just hot rice ready to go. And it was always delicious. And we've kind of just been like microwaving like the frozen rice from Trader Joe's, which is pretty good and can make in 3 minutes. But I was like, it would be kind of nice to just have like rice ready to go. You can stir fry. You can just, feeding kids. And my parents brought me this one and that was like used. They got from someone else. And I was like so annoyed by them. And it arrived. It was like a $20 rice cooker. I basically was about to put in the trash can. I just looked it up on Amazon to see how much money it costs. And I saw that the one I have has this like attachment that sits on the top where you can make rice and steam something in this top attachment at the same time. This thing is literally like under $30. Like the one I'm looking at on Amazon, it's called the Aroma Housewares Arc 360 NGP 20 cup pot style rice cooker and food steamer, whatever, some random thing. But I used it today. I was like, before I throw it away, let me just use it once. We had some like basmati rice I put in the bottom, and then you can put like just like a piece of salmon and like some vegetables in the top, and put like some salt or like soy
One-stop
sauce or whatever.
pot? Yeah.
Yeah. Turn it on, and 5 minutes later it was done cooking, and then let it sit for like 10 minutes. And within 20 minutes, we had this like pretty delicious dinner that took like so little effort. And there's like vegetables, rice, protein. I don't know. So
let me throw a tip your way.
Yeah.
You might be on this already, but if you're making rice at home, rinse your rice like 3 times.
Well, I was like, how do I use this? Because
you got to rinse it.
And
it makes a noticeable difference, actually. Yeah.
What are you rinsing off? Like, is it
gluten.
dirt or gluten?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it was pretty good. My kids were like, oh yeah, this is good.
Starch maybe is more accurate, but like, it makes it fluffier, basically. Yeah.
My other like super domestic thing. So it's just Mother's Day on Sunday, and it's so hard to buy our, moms and wives, or other moms like gifts.
Oren will regularly give me the same advice for the exact same gift he gave his wife last year.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so hard because everyone just, we're at a certain age where we just buy anything we need. Like Andy, literally every town he goes to, he buys a new lap desk.
True.
It's just so easy to buy things. So it's like, and from a, like if you want to buy something nice, like like a brand name, like an UGG slipper or an aloe something, or like I just always get the wrong thing, Yeah. My wife's taste is too good for me to like properly guess something.
And very specific. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I literally bought her this like super expensive cashmere sweater last year, and she already owned it.
From Quince?
No, it was super expensive. Quince is like
that's the knockoff version.
It's from Jenny Kane. Some place I never even heard of. I went to Beverly Hills. They looked at me like I was a vagrant coming up off the street.
A wrong turn.
Yeah. Anyhow, I kind of realized the move, and this is so obvious. Like you probably already know this, but it's just like, instead of a gift, just like to spend a day where they literally have zero work to do. Like I just like did 100% of the laundry, 100% of the food. I figured out every meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I had plans for the kids. I had all the things worked out. And my wife was just like, oh, damn. I'm just going to hang out, do some online shopping, be on the couch, take a nap. And she's like, this was an awesome Mother's Day. Thank you for an amazing Mother's Day. And I didn't even buy her a gift. Like, how cool is that?
It's pretty good.
So anyhow, I know it's kind of obvious, but it kind of works with like moms too. Like if I went to my mom's house and just like cooked dinner for everyone and did everything at her house, she would probably be so stoked. Anyhow, that's all I got.
Pretty good. Well done. I like that.
Very domestic.
Well, if you have Mother's Day advice, or if you loved the movie Friendship and you want to drop us a line, we'll send it along to Andy. You can hit us up across all social media at Just Shoot It Pod, or you can email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Letterboxd. I have that little pro icon next to my name now, Mr. Madden-Low.
Oh man, I've kind of wanted to get the verified on Instagram, but I feel weird paying for that. But I'm at O Kaplan. Did you do it?
I did do it, and there was some reason. There was like something I was trying to do that I was like, I'm just going to pay for it, and then I've just let it sit, and I feel weird about it. I have to admit.
But if you leave a comment, your comment will be at the top of the comments.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, all the verified.
I stopped commenting and I stopped liking.
Well, now you should.
Do I? Yeah, now I should.
Famous commenter. Anyhow, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at OKaplan. This episode was edited by Kevin O. Yang, and our producer is Tyler Small. And you're listening to music from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. We will catch you all next time.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.